Az emberiség ismét készül elhagyni otthonát. Visszatérünk a Holdra és a Marsról álmodunk. Most egy olyan legendával fogok beszélgetni, aki mindezt nem csak elképzelte, hanem meg is élte. Egy igazi holdjáró, Charlie Duke. General Duke, thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be with you. Thank you very much.
Now, my first question, I just have to jump into it, is about you reaching the lunar surface. Did you have any time to really savor the experience, or did you have too much on your mind?
Before we landed, we had a 7-hour delay, and that was very, very tense time. We didn't know whether we were going to get to land or not, but Mission Control saved the day, and we landed 7 hours behind schedule. And we were supposed to go outside right away, put on our backpacks and everything, go outside. But the 7-hour delay landing caused them to change our flight plan. And so 4 hours after we landed on the moon, they said, go to sleep, you guys. And so they gave us a rest period for 8 hours, which you can imagine was very difficult to get to sleep.
I bet.
4 hours after you landed on the moon. Anyway, we finally got outside and we did 3 excursions and accomplished everything that we had on our flight plan. So it was very successful, 3 days on the moon.
I have to ask, could you actually sleep? Is it possible with so much adrenaline and expectations?
Well, in my case, with a sleeping pill, yeah, you can do it.
That's good.
John Young, my commander, who had a lot of experience in space, he just went right to sleep. But I had the communication hat on, and so I was tense, waiting for Mission Control to interfere if we had a problem. And so I was a little keyed up, but after 4 or 5 hours, I took a sleeping pill, and I got enough sleep to give me the energy I needed for the first EVA.
Yeah. Now, as you might be aware, we are planning on going back to the moon in a short while, hopefully. What advice would you give to other astronauts who are planning to step on the lunar surface just like you did?
My advice is to train thoroughly and try to, what if, I call it, what if this happens, what if that happens? Try to think through every scenario that might lead you to a hiccup or a problem. And so the training is very, very important in lunar surface activity and your stay. And so John and I, unfortunately, we had 2 years to train because of the Apollo 13 accident. They delayed us 2 years. So we were really thoroughly trained, and basically blindfolded. We could get suited up in the spacecraft, and of course you couldn't go outside blindfolded, but we had a good enough training that we knew exactly how to do it. We refined our procedures so that everything went really, really smoothly doing the suit up. The egress from the spacecraft, and then on the lunar surface, we practiced every procedure that we were to do. Getting in and out of the rover, picking up rocks, photographing rocks, all of the things that we had on our flight plan, we practiced over and over and over again in real time out on the simulated moon surface, which was at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Yeah. I noticed that you didn't mention one thing on the flight plan, which was leaving a family portrait on the surface. As I understand, you left your family on the moon as a memento.
Yeah, that was one of the last activities I did before I ingressed into the spacecraft for the last time. My boys were 5 and 7 at the time, and we trained in Florida, but they lived and my family lived in Houston. So we were gone all the time for a couple of years. Leave Monday and come back Friday, and repeated that over and over and over again, because the training was all done mostly in Florida because of the simulators. The spacecraft was there for activation and checkout. So we wanted to be there for hands-on. And so that's why we trained in Florida. Right. And so the boy, without Dad being home, I wanted to sort of say, well, this is a family event, and I'm going to take our family picture and leave it on the moon. And got permission to do that from Deke Slayton. And so I had it in the pocket of my spacesuit the last excursion. And I just took it out and dropped it onto the moon, and it landed face up, and I got a picture of the picture.
Yes.
The temperature of the moon was about 180 degrees Fahrenheit at that point, so it was real hot. So the picture started curling up almost immediately, but I got a picture of the picture before the temperature affected it.
Oh my God, it was that hot. Do you think it's still there? Do you think it could have survived the temperature?
It survives, but it's all curled up and ashy looking now, I think. And because you just, the flag, for instance, it's all faded out. And all of the colors that we had up there basically faded away. And so the picture didn't last very long, but long enough to get a picture of the picture.
That's wonderful. Now, not many people could say that they have actually looked at Earth from a distant point. And many astronauts describe this feeling as sort of spiritual. How would you describe this feeling, looking at all of us together?
It wasn't a spiritual experience for me, but it was a very vivid memory. As we came around from the moon, backside of the moon for the first time, there was the Earth suspended up in the blackness of space. And my first thought was, we're a long way from home. I hope this thing holds together. But then I began to appreciate the beauty of the Earth just suspended upon nothing. And later on, when I became a Christian, I saw what in the Bible is described what I saw. It says somewhere in the scriptures, it said, when God made the earth, he suspended it upon nothing. And that's exactly what it looks like, just hung in the blackness of space. And then another scripture says, God sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. And it is really a circle, and it's a sphere. So if you think it's a flat earth, you're willfully ignorant.
We have some good testimonies saying the opposite, for sure. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about walking on the moon. We saw many videos and recordings of astronauts sort of hopping around, doing the bunny hop, as they call it. Is that really the most efficient way to walk on the moon, to not actually walk?
Yeah, it depends on the slope of the terrain, I discovered. If it's flat, it was more of a Frankenstein walk, real stiff-legged and one foot in front of the other. Or you could hop or skip, one foot behind the other. Going up a steep slope, it was more of a hop. Coming down, I put one foot in front of the other and just sort of skipped down. So it depended on the terrain and the uneven terrain about really what how you walked. So there were the three ways is stiff-legged, 1 foot in front of the other. The other one is hopping and one is skipping. So I use all three of those techniques depending on the slope of the ground and the depth of the dust and all that stuff.
So, sort of a moon triathlon. That's
right.
That sounds difficult. Was it physically demanding? Did you sweat at all or get really exerted?
It was. It took a lot of energy in that spacesuit, and so mission control monitored our heartbeat, and if our heartbeat reached a certain level, which I don't remember, but if it reached a certain level, they'd make us stop and wait a minute and let the heartbeat go down, the pace of our heart go down. I found that I rested in the car, and I rode the car, I didn't drive the car. And so I was able to rest as we were in the car. My job was to take pictures every 50 meters because we didn't have a TV. The car was bouncing across the moon, and the antenna, TV antenna wouldn't stabilize on the Earth, so we didn't have any TV underway. So John Young drove according to my instructions. I had a map, and then I took every 50 meters. I took a picture of where we were and I was sort of the travel guide, if you will. Okay, Houston, we're passing a boulder field on our right, and I'm taking a picture, and this and that and the other. So I kept sort of a running travelogue going with mission control during our traverses.
Now, the other issue with the lunar surface, as I understand, is not only the gravity and the weird bumps, but also the dust. How big of a problem did the moon dust? How big of a challenge was it?
Outside, you were in your suit, of course, and we had a brush that we were going to brush the moon dust off, but it was so fine it wouldn't brush off. So we got back inside, and we had a lot of moon dust on our suits, on the boots, and inside the boots, the moon boots we had over our suit boots. And so we tracked a lot of dust into the lunar module. But in gravity, it just stayed on the floor. But it was real. I mean, you take your suits off and you'd be in socks and you're walking in moon dust on the floor. And so it was a big mess, actually. So the next missions with Artemis are going to have an airlock, and so they won't track the dust into the living quarters. It'll stay in the airlock.
Right.
And on the moon, of course, the dust stays on the floor. But when we got back into orbit, it all floated up, and the cabin of the lunar module was just filled with moon dust floating around. Yes. And it was a real problem. And Mattingly wouldn't let us into the command module with all the dust, and so he gave us a little mini vacuum cleaner, and we vacuumed up the moon dust that was floating around. And so Artemis, fortunately, has got an airlock, and they can leave all the dust and moon suits down there, and they go back into the command into the living quarters and navigation systems, and won't have any problem, I don't think.
Yeah, so the dust could pose a challenge to like the equipment and everything else, but you guys didn't have any problems. It's only the big dust in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. How did you guys have any issues at all with how the planning went and how you actually executed these sort of rover rides? So did you guys have something happen that you really wasn't prepared for?
Well, we were 7 hours late landing. Yeah. That delayed everything, but the EVAs that we had planned, moonwalks, if you will, and were planned out, and we were able to accomplish most of the activities that we had planned. First EVA, we deployed the experiments package, and then we prepared the car, and we started driving, and we drove out about 2 kilometers to a place called Plum Crater, and did a lot of exploration out there. And second EVA, we went south and climbed a place we call Stone Mountain, which was about a 100-meter high hill. And we got almost to the top of that and found a level spot and parked the car, and we started doing the experiments. It was fantastic view from up there. You could see all the way across the valley where we had landed. It was 10 kilometers wide or so. and you could see clearly the far side with the objective that we were going to do on the 30 VA is a place called Big North Ray Crater up there. And it was a big crater about 300 meters wide, about 100 meters deep, and we were going to explore that. So we found some very interesting things, and he did modify our our traverse several times.
What were these interesting things that you found?
Well, interesting rock, bigger rocks, rocks that we were looking for a rock that was had permanently shadowed soil beneath it, and so we found this rock that was tilted, and underneath it was in shadow, and it looked like it was such a direction it would never see sunlight back in there, and so. They wanted to see how that soil compared from radiation versus the soil that's outside, and so we were able to pick. That was one of the samples that they really want us to take. So on our flight, we collected about 200 pounds, about 100, not quite 100 kilos of rock and soil samples during our stay. We did a good collection.
Oh yes, that sounds nice. So we talked about all the physical planning and all the challenges that you had, but what about your body? How did you sort of get used to the smaller gravitation? Did you have any issues, maybe with your head, with your stomach?
No, we didn't have much problem. We had the meals, the food on the lunar module in the cabin weren't very good because we didn't have any hot water. So we had to mix them up and with cold water. So we didn't eat very much. We had candy bars and these little things. But inside our suit, we had a 1 gallon which was about 4 or 5 liters in a plastic bag Velcroed to our liquid cool garment. And a little tube came up inside the helmet. You could reach over and bite it, open the valve, and drink the water. And on this side, we had a candy bar that was very chewy, but very high energy. And we could reach over and take a bite and pull it up and left it there.
You just had a candy bar stuck near your face?
Inside the helmet, came up right here.
Oh.
And it was delicious. We ate it. We ate the whole thing, and so we didn't have very many meals inside, but what was in our spacesuit was very nutritious, and we ate all of that every time outside.
Oh, I would love to have just a permanent candy bar just stuck here, and I could eat it whenever I want. That sounds like the dream. When you got back, how did you feel? How fast could you just settle back into the life on Earth?
Well, when we splashed down, we were in the South Pacific, and the Navy came by and put us in a life raft, and then the helicopter picked us up and carried us back to the ship, and we were pretty stinky, and so the first thing we did was we were welcomed on the ship, and John made a few little remarks, and then we all went down and got showered up and cleaned up and shaved and came back to a human appearance, if you will. And then after that, they had a big meal for us and a reception on the ship, and it was good to have a shower. You know, in Apollo, we had no way to take a full shower. What we did, one guy would get naked, and you'd get a rag with hot water, and you just rub down with all over, and that was as good as you could get in Apollo. And So we had no real problems with hygiene. John kept shaving. I let a beard grow as little as I could, but it was just individual thoughts and whatever you wanted to do.
And after you got back, did you? So how fast could you sort of settle back into earthly life? How weird was it to come back, or was it just like every other day?
Well, we were in the South Pacific. We stayed. The aircraft carrier took a day, 24 hours to sail towards Hawaii to get close enough for the airplane to carry us to the Hickam Air Force Base in Honolulu. And from there, we had a short ceremony of welcome, admiral and a few generals. And then we flew back to on an Air Force plane to Ellington Air Force Base in Houston. And that's where we saw our families for the first time. And we had a welcome, a welcome celebration. And then from then, they gave us a day or so to get used to the family and collect our thoughts. And then we went into a big debriefing, several weeks of talking about what we did and the runs we did and the photographs and all that.
And this is completely understandable because this was a huge accomplishment. But a single day to spend with your family, that must have been difficult.
Well, it was. It worked out all right. You know, we went to work at 8:00, got off at 5, and then we had time with our family. We weren't traveling, and we were with the family during the evenings. And my boys were 5 and 7, and so I was able to show them some pictures and that we'd taken and talk about the flight. And they got very excited about Dad being on the moon, and the neighborhood was going crazy. And even though we had a lot of astronauts in our neighborhood, it was a big deal. My next door neighbor was Bill Anders, and he was on Apollo 8.
Yes.
And Frank Borman was just down the road. Neil Armstrong lived a block away, and John Young lived in the neighborhood. Stu Russo's in the neighborhood. I mean, we had about 20-something astronauts living in our little neighborhood. And so it wasn't any big deal being an astronaut in El Lago, Texas.
Did he come back already? Yes, he's back. Hooray! We're throwing a potluck for him. That must be quite the neighborhood with the stories.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a nice neighborhood.
So we talked a lot about the technical stuff, all the fine events and achievements, but psychologically, this must have been a different journey entirely. So the isolation in space is what most astronauts describe as the most difficult thing to endure. How was it for you to be this removed from everybody else?
Well, you're not really removed from everybody else. You got a crew. There's 3 of us, and a spacecraft that's 300 cubic feet, and then the lunar module, which you can reach out and touch one another. And so you were always with somebody, and you never felt alone. The only time I felt a little strange was when we came back from around the back of the moon the first time and we saw Earth rise. And my first thought was, we're a long way from home. I hope this thing holds together. And so that was the kind of thinking you had. And you were so excited about the adventure and staying on the flight plan and doing all of these exciting things that you really didn't get lonely. You really didn't get worried about where you were. We had to abort the landing because of a problem in the other spacecraft. And so that was a bitter pill to swallow. 1 hour before we were to land, they aborted the landing. And it didn't look like we were going to get to land, but Mission Control came to the rescue and they figured it out a way to get around this problem. And so 7 hours late, we finally landed, and it was the last revolution that we could land and still get back to our landing site.
It was a real last chance.
Yeah, the moon was moving out from under us, and we had enough fuel to go back to the landing site and on that revolution. But the next revolution, we wouldn't have enough fuel, so they would have aborted us. So we were very thankful and very excited about getting a go to land. And once we got that go fixed, and they said, okay, everything's, we figured it all out. Mission Control saved that day and saved the landing, and so gave us permission, and we landed and spent 3 days as we expected on the lunar surface, and got all of the experiments done, and so it was very successful lunar surface stay.
As you tell it, as you tell your story, I never noticed any hint of like doubt or fear. Did nothing go wrong at all? Did you ever have some scary second of maybe doubt about the mission itself?
Not about the mission, but I had a scary moment, and that was towards the end of our stay.
Yes.
And our crew had decided that at the end of our stay, we would do the Moon Olympics. The Olympics were in Munich in August of 1972. So we were going to do the Moon Olympics, and we were going to do the high jump and the broad jump. And so I started to bounce. And if you look at an astronaut walking or standing, they bent over a little bit because the backpack weighed as much as I did. And so you had to keep your center of gravity over your feet by leaning forward. And so when I jumped, I straightened up, and when that put my center of gravity over, and I started over backwards. And that was scary because if I hit wrong and that backpack broke, I'm dead. So I said, fear is not a bad emotion if you don't panic. And so I had a lot of fear, but it said I had this feeling, roll right. So I rolled to the right and broke my fall on my right hand and my right leg, and bounced onto my back, and my heart was pounding, but I was still alive, and everything sounded right. We had all the pressures were right, and quantities were right, so I was okay. But it was a pounding heart deal, and I'll tell you, it was really scary. John came over, and he was upset. He looked down and said, "That wasn't very smart, Charlie." Looked at me. I said, "Yeah, John, I know. Help me up." So he helped me up, and then I looked up, and Mission Control had seen this stupid accident jump, and so they said, "No more Moon Olympics, guys. Get back inside." So we didn't do the long jump like we were planning. I survived. And that it was scary at the time, but fortunately, fear is not a bad emotion if you don't panic. I think I said that already, but yeah.
That's a good.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, that was the only thing at the end that got our attention. I'd already put the family picture on the moon, and I had a special coin that the Air Force gave me to leave on the moon. It was Happy Birthday Air Force. It was the 25th anniversary of the Air Force in 1972. So, and I was the only Air Force officer on the moon that year. So we had a special Happy Birthday deal. I left the coin on the moon and said Happy Birthday to the Air Force on 25th anniversary.
That's quite a birthday present. I'm sure they were very happy about that.
Yeah, they were. So I had two of them, actually two coins. One I brought back, and it's last time I saw it, it was on the display at the Air Force Museum at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. So anyway, I gave it to them, and NASA gave them a moon rock, and they made a special presentation of the thing that was on display there. But I haven't been there a long time, and it's probably still there somewhere in the museum.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And this is a perfect segue because I really wanted to ask you about sort of the afterlife of your mission. What do you think the most important legacy is of your adventures out there?
Let's say overall Apollo was discovering the moon and the composition of the moon and the seismic experiments that we left and the radar reflectors, all of the experiments that were left on the moon to understand the moon and the interior of the moon through seismic work and heat flow experiments and all of the experiments that we left operating on the moon. And they sent back a lot of data, and they were so efficient battery-wise that NASA, after I think 5 years later, they just shut them down. They had all this data, and they were wanting to spend money on other things rather than just monitoring lunar surface, experiments. Mm-hmm. So it was a scientific challenge and a tribute and triumph to understand from the Apollo rocks and the various places we landed and seeing the interior of the moon from the seismic experiments that we left. And technologically and experientially, Apollo was a tremendous success. 600 pounds of moon rocks and to examine, and a lot of them still available in the Lunar Receiving Lab. And so to have had an opportunity to spend that long on the moon and collect so many samples was with great pride that John and Ken and I flew Apollo 16.
Right. Now, of course, the scientific community must have been overjoyed about all your achievements, but what about the public? How do you think your legacy affects our generations?
Everywhere I go, I get a warm welcome in Apollo. People are still, half the population in the United States weren't even alive when we flew to the moon. It's been 53 years since I walked on the moon, and last April. And so a lot of my audience, when I speak, they're just, they weren't even born. And so to hear this adventure full firsthand from somebody that did it has been extremely rewarding to me, and to put it into language that people would understand, and how the emotions and that we experienced, and that's what I think that people like to think about, and they're not so. I just said, what was it? I guess that's the most important question. What was it like on the moon? And that those feelings of emotion and connectedness to Earth, and yet looking up and there's the Earth's, 250,000 miles away, and it's now it's even more vivid to me as I study the Bible, and in the Old Testament it talks about when God made the earth, he suspended it upon nothing, and that's exactly what it looks like. And then another verse it says God sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and I didn't see God, but I saw the circle. So
close enough.
It's those things are just now vivid, very very vivid to me. And I try to everywhere I go, I try to respond to questions from the audience and answer trivial questions or deeper questions, and so it's a life that we lead now of going around and representing Apollo, if you will, all over. I was just in North Germany, and we're going to let's see, our next trip, Australia, I think, and
wow.
So we get an opportunity to share the joy and the adventure of space flight with people, and to motivate a lot of kids to maybe I can do that. And I met one astronaut, he tried 11 times to get selected for the space program. And on the 11th time, they picked him.
Oh.
And so he has a great a book about his adventure. And he flew in space one time, and I was on a cruise with him recently, and got to know him, and he's a tremendous, I mean, what a perseverance.
Yes.
11 times he tried and finally got picked.
That is the quality of an astronaut, to not give up and just go for it again and again. Now, as we come to the end of our discussion, I have two questions for you. One is just for me, and one is for the audience. I have to ask the first one, because I am, of course, of the people of the internet, and many people doubt that we have actually gone to the moon. Now, I do not want to offend you or sort of make you mad about this, but I do have to ask, what message would you convey to these folks who are still not sure if you were actually there?
Yeah, I just did a 3-hour podcast with one of the big debaters, Barzibel, and the evidence is overwhelming that we landed on the moon. Years ago, I told NBC gal, Katie Couric, whoever she worked for, and I said, why did we fake it 9 times? If we fake something, we do it once and shut up. But we went to the moon 9 times. We landed 6. And the evidence is there now. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is a satellite orbiting the moon, mapping the moon. And they have very sensitive cameras. And on every Apollo landing site, they've taken pictures. And you can see our descent stage. You can see the experiments package. You can see the car that we left. And the not individual footprints, but you can see where we walked. When you walk on the moon, the bright color turns dark. And so all of that's there on Apollo 16 and every other landing site. You can see it all. And the satellites taking these pictures doesn't belong to NASA. It's the University of Arizona. And why would they lie? You know, and so the evidence is overwhelming in my opinion, when you look at these photographs, and it's hard to doctor those photographs to make them look real, and they are real, so they're not doctored. And so the evidence now that you can see through these photographs all attribute to the Apollo that was 6 landings, and scattered across the front face of the moon. And so those pictorial evidence is there, plus the rocks. We got 600 pounds of moon rocks, and they're totally different than Earth rocks. So
and you can actually go see them in different
well,
places.
you can sort of some rocks at Houston Space Center. There are several on display in the museum there, the Space Center Museum. But I'm talking about most of them are still in the Lunar Receiving Lab and are parceled out a little bit of each year to people that have I want to do this experiment on a moon rock. And they either get it approved or disapproved. If it's approved, they send them some moon rock. And they can do whatever they want to in their experiments has been approved. So people are still examining the moon rocks, and they're unique. And the rocks we pick up were not volcanic at all, like the Luna Mare. They were igneous rocks, and they were very unusual. So
just another evidence. Well, there you have it, guys. That was, thank you so much. I really needed that for my own sanity. Now for the other question, this is more for the people. As we advance further and further into the future, I wanted to ask if you could send a message back from the future to today's people. Send one true advice about how we should approach the future, what would it be?
Well, I would say optimistically. I believe that we have the capability, with God's help, to overcome any problems that we experience. And so I'm a faithful Christian. My attitude towards the future is hope and desire to live a life that is worthwhile, and encourage my family, my kids, and everybody I talk to that you can make a difference. So always aim high, keep your antennas up. I tell the kids, because you never know where your life's which avenue, the fork in the road you should take. And I think we get impressions. For instance, there was no astronaut program when I graduated from college. And it was 59 before they picked the first group. And I was 1962 when they picked me. 1966. I just had something inside of me said, go to MIT instead of stay in Germany. And when I went to MIT, I was working on the Apollo guidance and navigation system. It's part of my thesis. And I met some astronauts, and they were so excited about their job. I said, how did I get that job? And they said, well, get your degree, go to test pilot school, and you might have a chance. So I followed their advice. And that was just a turn, that antennas go that way. And that's what I did. I could have stayed in Germany another year. If I'd have stayed in Germany, I'd never met my wife, and I'd never become an astronaut. So it was a big decision. I didn't realize it at the time, but something just inside said, go to MIT. And it worked out. And from there, my direction was really set for the space program.
And for history. That is a wonderful, wonderful ideal to leave our discussion on, because I do many interviews, but I rarely hear such an optimistic and hopeful message towards the future. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your knowledge and adventures. We leave you now. Thank you so much for joining us. Azt a mindenségét, ez életem egyik legizgalmasabb interjúja volt. Remélem nektek is tetszett. Hogyha lemaradtatok az MVM Future Talks moonshotról, vagy bármelyik másik korábbi adásról, itt a honlapon mindent megtaláltok. Jó szórakozást hozzá, szervusztok!